All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker up on TSN 2. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. What an afternoon we're going to have today.
Whew.
All hell is breaking loose throughout the National
NHL?
Hockey League. But you know what's happened here is all these GMs, because all these trades have been happening today. Players are going on waivers. Players are getting claimed. They all thought it'd be a sweep or Florida would win last night. They're like, just hold off after
They're
Game 5.
Screw it, man.
Now they're like, screw this. This could go on for another week and a half. We got to make some moves here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love to
Crazy.
see it, though, Hazy, and I'm glad you're here to witness it because usually you got the sniffles and your verbata today and you miss everything.
I do, but not
What?
today. I couldn't miss today, man. This is going to be good sledding this afternoon.
Well, okay, so out of everything, because our pets' heads are falling off here, what is your number one? I mean, is it the obvious 97 last night, or is it PLD?
Well, we'll get to Pierre-Luc Dubois and the Caps in a moment.
Woo!
Right.
I saw the greatest tweet, guys. I got to share it now. The Caps, I was just laughing before it came out. It said the Washington Capitals bought Cap Friendly so that they could hide PLD's contract. Nobody could see the particulars of it. It was. I almost fell off my chair.
That's a great line, and that's so true. They're like, we better buy this thing and bury it, man, because people are not going to believe we acquired this guy. 7 more years at $8.5 million for Pierre-Luc Dubois. That's a mess, and that's a big story. Markstrom obviously going from Calgary to New Jersey. You've got San Jose claiming guys on waivers. Like, what is happening out there?
Yeah.
But I don't think anything can trump the greatest player in the world with what I thought was one of the more impressive games I can think of in a long time. And I know he played great in Game 4. Last night, to me, was absurd. Like, absolutely absurd. That was so out of this world in terms of production, in terms of energy, in terms of just having the opponent on their heels. Every time he was on the shift, it was like you could feel Florida just sink and say, we're screwed here. Like, what are we going to do with this guy?
The only way I could describe it, Hayes, and I played the game my whole life. I played a long time in the NHL. I played against Gretzky, Lemieux, Crosby, Ovechkin. Watching him last night, I thought, I don't know if you could play the game any better than what he did last night. Like, as far as an individual performance, with the comment dragging back to Alberta, with what was at stake, the clutchness of what he was doing out there. Mm-hmm. As far as like an individual game, and I'd be curious to get the Quizmaster's take on it because he's seen everything from a bunch of different eras. But I just don't know how anything can be better than that as far as an individual performance. I don't know if you can play the game of hockey any better than what he did last night. That move right there, it reminded me of the Mario move in Minnesota when he had Sean Chambers and he went one way and then went the other way. Just the movement, it was just disgusting what he was doing. And everyone knows how he skated, but it was almost like last night there was an extra gear. You just put everything together. I don't know if you play the game any better than what he did last night. I don't know if you can.
The one thing I kept thinking about during that game was anytime, Edmonton gets the lead and anytime Florida pressed, it was like McDavid just had some form of an answer. There were some really good back checks and some good defensive play there too, where he was really dialed in. But it just Florida get a little bit of push, and McDavid's like, no, I'm just going to keep this lead. I'm going to keep this going to the point where I personally thought Florida was going to score in that last minute, and McDavid's like, that's not happening on my watch too, because Matthew Tkachuk entered the series too. I mean,
he was unreal last night.
Unreal too.
And it's all forgotten. Like that play on the goal line at the end of the game,
unbelievable.
Had the chance to be, one of those highlight reel plays you'd talk about and hear about, and everyone would try to reenact forever. The way he timed it perfectly, because he hit the ice and knew his stick wasn't going to get there until he slid a little bit closer and the puck slowed down. Like, it was scientific the way he handled that. Yeah. And yes, he gets on the board with a goal. He was hot off the rush. He was hot off the cycle. He was active basically all over the ice. You're right. Like, that was Tkachuk's game. We asked yesterday, Tkachuk or Draisaitl. It was a landslide, Matthew Tkachuk, yet it's irrelevant in the end because they don't end up winning the game. And as good as Tkachuk is, obviously he can't match what McDavid brings to the table when McDavid decides he's going to have the best game he could possibly have. And what we're witnessing here, both literally, figuratively, I know we kind of joke about era adjusted and all that kind of stuff. Like, this guy's putting up numbers. Like, he might literally pass Gretzky now for the most points ever in a Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah.
Like,
Which nobody passes that guy. There's you can have great runs, you can have great playoffs, regular seasons. There'll always be Gretzky at the top of the ladder, and it's not touchable. And this guy might actually do it.
Yes.
It's got to go 7, I believe, but
I agree.
Right.
It's got to go 7. Yet, again, and we'll roll our eyes, but era adjusted. He's
what
already
does that
passed
even
him.
mean?
It's all about, relative to this era compared to that, and points and production,
goalies, save percentage,
goalies, and all that kind of stuff.
and all of that type of stuff.
It ultimately doesn't mean much. You don't
I've
get
never
an award
heard you
for that.
say. I'd never heard you say era adjusted.
Well, I used it with the Matthews Pursuit of 70 a couple times. I did drop it with Matthews to make a point of what this.
How
guy's
did you
doing.
get engaged in that type of stuff?
I found rabbit holes, man. I was deep in a rabbit hole, and I
Eric
saw
Tulsky
it
said-
today.
Somebody told you
Tulsky
about
sent him a note. That's
Yeah, I
what
did. Tulsky and I are boys. We go
Eric
way back.
Tulsky, yeah.
Yeah, we're both Ivy League guys back in the day. But, it doesn't even matter. Era adjusted makes no difference. Watch the game. You'll see what this guy's doing. McDavid, 4 points last night, 4 points the night before. He's got 10 points in the last 3 games in the Cup Final. Like, this is – and Florida's a juggernaut in terms of the way they play, defensively sound. Bob's always been great. And – there's two sides to the coin. On one end of it, Edmonton, I can't give them enough credit. How resilient they've been, how good they looked in Game 4. I thought they deserved to win last night. I didn't think they stole that game by any means. I thought they were the better team. Now, Florida had a push.
Yeah.
I didn't think Bob was great. I thought Skinner was really good. But now, you're going back to Alberta. Someone's got to be down 3-2. And Bob is terrifying. Like, you can speak to it, Noodles, but that first McDavid goal, that goal obviously can't go in. I mean,
Right.
you cannot allow that to go in. I didn't think he played the Brown goal great, but
I thought he looked shaky, guys. I did a little thing on SportsCenter where there was a couple, even a clear-sighted shot from Cody Ceci, where he goes to roll his blocker and poke it into the corner, and it hits the inside of his blocker and slides to the slot. It's like, just a little bit off, and that goal, it's funny because how many times, and I said this to another goalie today, how many times do we yell and scream when a guy goes down in the reverse VH at a bad angle,
and
right?
it goes up over his ear.
And it goes in his head, right?
Yeah.
So Bob stands up on that play, and McJesus fires it hard. Now, that skate shouldn't be there. It's 5-hole. But all you're saying to yourself, if you're a Florida fan or even a fan of goalie, you're going, you got to go down on that play.
Right.
What are you doing here? Go into the reverse VH. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's a stoppable puck. He needs to make that save. But the night that McDavid was having, it just felt like that didn't go in, something else was going to go in for him because he was that electric, that good. Their power play now was 2 for 5. They're starting to sniff. And Hayes, you just mentioned it. Bobrovsky has allowed 9 goals in his last 39 shots. So he's 30 for 39 in his last 2 games. So, basically whatever that is, 5
that's a
periods.
mess is what that is.
Well, and Florida's allowed with the empty netter 13 goals in 2 games. Like Edmonton's found their offense. I still think Friday's game's going to be a 2-1, 3. Like, I think Florida's going to just squeeze the ice.
I thought that about the last night's game.
You're right.
But it's the one along the ice that's the killer. You look at the score of the game.
Yeah.
That's the one where it's just like, that can't go in, man. It's so difficult to win a hockey game. I don't know if it's because of the way it went in or just McDavid's score. It can't go in. It's an awful goal.
Put it this way: if that goes in on Stuart Skinner, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, he's being run out of town, man.
You can't allow those goals at critical times. It's a bad goal. Bobrovsky, was after the first 3 games, Conn Smythe, he's got both hands on it, right?
Right.
I don't think he's got it anymore.
That guy McDavid is winning the give him the trophy now. That's it. It's just like when I win Jerry's or one of our confirm or denies, it's hand me the trophy early and let me get out the door. That guy's winning the Conn Smythe. That's the end of the story. You can't even Like,
okay, I got a couple
this is
thoughts
Jaguar
on
on steroids.
I have a couple thoughts on that.
Here we go. I know you've been thinking about this all day.
I have been. I have thoughts. Okay. Now, I will say, FanDuel, like, the odds have completely flipped. This is wild what's happened here with
Keep
McDavid.
in mind what you just said.
Yes.
5 minutes ago, you said this guy is chasing down Gretzky and might surpass it, and now you're going to say something stupid.
No,
so
listen,
go ahead.
Let me reveal the odds. According to FanDuel, McDavid is now minus 185 to win the Conn Smythe, which is wild. His team's down 3-2, right? They could lose Game 6 on home ice, and it's basically you got to pay juice to bet McDavid to win the Conn Smythe. Now, Barkov's plus 260. I didn't like his game last night. No. Not like he's improved. No. I don't think he's been invisible for 2 games, in my opinion. He's made a couple of sneaky good defensive plays. He's got the long stick where he's going to get involved, and he was actually making plays late in that game where I thought he might break through. Right. But I don't think he should be improving upon his odds. But it's Bob that's sinking. Bob's plus 750 now. But there is groupthink that happens all the time. We're all victims of it. It's like, got to give it to that guy. And it just flipped. Like, there's no thought that goes. What if Bob makes 50 stops and they win Game 6?
Friday,
He's out? Like, yes, he was brutal for 2 games. He was also brilliant in Game 1 and possibly brilliant in Game 6, the closing game. I mean, I think you can make a case for other guys. McDavid's been the best player. I'm not disputing it. But I also think would he want that? Like, I'll ask you, as a player, would you want a Conn Smythe when your team loses?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, exactly.
As much as like it would be the feather in the cap as far as the dominant performance, and you're getting accolades for that, you're like, we just lost, man. I don't even want that.
Right.
I know, but
you saw Jaguar go out there in New Jersey when Jersey won the cup, and he's like, thanks, I guess. Like, I'll take this away. Wow. And it just doesn't almost make sense regardless. But
he's your guy. He's your guy still.
Dude, it's not even close. It's not even close. He's winning it.
Yeah, he's not. If they lose Friday, you're right. Like, he will be dejected. He will have the long face, but he's going to. You're not just going to wave to Jerry and go, no, like, decline it. You got to go out, take the picture, and move on. He's doing what he can. Bottom line. And
yes, he is.
I thought about this, guys. Like, Draisaitl's clearly hurt.
He's a borderline liability out there right now.
But I will say this. I think he's going to have a game. That's my prediction. If it's Game 6 and they win, maybe it's Game 7. Like, you can clearly tell that he's laboring. I thought he worked hard defensively and was at least positionally strong. But you can tell that the power play has shifted where they're not using him on a one-timer. So obviously something's with the hand and all. He's losing draws. He never loses draws. Like, he is so strong on draws. But you can tell he's laboring. But I think, with the beauty of medicine and freezing, like something, if he needs 1 game or 2 games, I still think we talked about Tkachuk. We've seen McDavid. We've seen other guys. I think there's a Draisaitl game still coming. Like, I really do. Maybe I'm wrong on this.
No, I hear you, man.
Too banged up.
The guy's got the heart of a lion. Like, I think he'll give everything he possibly can, and they need him, right? Like, you need him now. You're flying back to Alberta. You got to have Draisaitl factor in some capacity.
Yeah.
Listen, I think McDavid. I brought this analogy to the table earlier. I was doing a SportsCenter hit, and I said this feels like Brady's 28-3 moment. Like, if he drags them back down 3-0, and everyone's great. You have great careers, and that's what this guy is. When he hangs them up, he's going to be a top 5 player ever. Maybe he's 4, maybe he's 3, maybe he's 1. Who knows where he's going or exactly where he's going to place? But that's where he's going. Like, that's who this guy is, and yet he needs a championship, and it's very difficult for him to surpass the point production of a guy like Gretzky, Lemieux. I think it's too late in his career, and it's too tough with 32 teams to win 4 or 5 or 6 cups. I just don't think you can do it anymore. Talk to Taves about that. Talk to Kucherov about that. I just don't think you can do it. But one thing he has the ability to do here, and he needs his teammates, and he needs Skinner, and he needs some things to break his way. Gretzky was never down 3-0 in a cup final and dragged his team back. Lemieux was never down 3-0. Bobby Orr was never down. Gordie Howe. Like, this guy has the chance to do something we've never seen before. And when I think Brady, I think 28-3. Among all the great accolades, you say, look at that cat. He just would not accept defeat. And the way McDavid has handled this, The way he basically said with a straight face, go ahead and doubt us. I can't wait for it. I'm looking forward to it. You doubt us. The way he said we're going to drag them back to Alberta. This guy is a machine right now. And it's greatness personified. And if he can complete it, and I still have my doubts, admittedly, I think it's a massively uphill climb here for the Oilers.
They're only halfway there.
They're only halfway there. They need 2 more wins. But if they get it, and he plays the way he played the other night, and he dominates Game 6 and dominates Game 7, I think, we're 5-6 days away from having a legitimate conversation. Is that the greatest performance we've ever seen?
Oh, no doubt about it.
And that's a mic drop, isn't it? Like then Gretzky and it's not taking anything away from everyone else. They're all the greatest players ever.
No.
But he can do something no one's done before and be the face of it.
Yeah.
That might be better than 2 or 3 cups.
I totally agree because there's always going to be the outrageous numbers of Gretzky, and Mario's the most talented player that ever laced him up. But if he can actually pull this off, he can get his flowers where it's as part of his legacy, where it's like that's the greatest individual performance in any playoff in any major sport. And that's something, man.
Exactly.
I think, Brian, to your point, that might trump because he's not going to have 6 cups. He's not going to have this performance if he does it. Again, this is a giant
It's a massive if.
Because Florida might just show up and go, we're locking this thing down. We're having a game. Paul Maurice, that was the first time he looked somewhat human the other night, like last night.
Yeah, the comedy tour has come to an end now. It's no longer jokes and giggles anymore for Mo.
But I think they're going to be all business getting off the plane. And Florida's going to be – they're going to be a handful Friday night. Now, the crowd, the team, the Oilers have.
When are they going in, Jamie? When is Florida going in? Are they doing the?
I assume it's
That's
today.
a good question.
It is like if I'm them, I'm like screw it. Let's go in tomorrow and just fly in, get in at 10 o'clock at night, and just screw it.
I heard this. So I heard this today. Snoop Dogg has a concert tomorrow at the rink.
That is accurate.
So we talked about this yesterday. Everything has to be moved out. So the media centers, all of these things. So if they got in today and they're looking to skate, they got to go off site. So Florida
Aren't
might
we at
say
a point with
this.
Snoop Dogg where it's like, Snoop, your concert is not here at this venue.
He's not selling it out either. I remember going to a Snoop Dogg concert in Calgary in front of 3,000 people, and he showed up at 10:45 and had to get kicked off the stage at 11 p.m. It was the worst concert I ever went
Hazy,
to.
can we tell him that he's not doing the concert there?
I don't know, man. I mean, Snoop, I can't speak for that because I personally wouldn't have much interest in going to see Snoop right now. I can't imagine there'd be Snoop fans that would think they should vote, overpower the vote of Oiler fans right now.
Yeah.
But, if it's locked in, the concert's rolling through town, what are you going to do? I mean, I guess you just hope Snoop does his thing and gets the hell out of there. I mean, I don't know how else you dance around it. This is what happens with buildings. They probably booked this a year ago. Weren't even thinking about a cup final at that point.
Don't you think
yet here they are.
Cates, if Daryl Cates, I don't know what they're making for every gate. Let's say 15, 20 million for every gate coming through with merch, all of that. Don't you think he would just cancel the concert and write a check and say, you know what, another time, reschedule, whatever?
I don't know if you can do that. I don't know if that's good for business.
You can do anything, man.
I guess you can, but let's not forget, when the Oilers aren't playing there, that building's sitting there empty.
100%.
And they're praying for Snoop to show up.
I get it. There was 2 things from last night that I pulled just optically. First and foremost, how old is Greg Norman?
60 now? 60-something?
No. Who was the guy that was ringing?
Oh, Jack Nicklaus.
Jack Nicklaus, not Greg
Jack
Norman.
Nicklaus.
They rolled that guy out there. He could have sucked the life right out of the building there.
Yeah.
Is he 90? How old is he?
Well, he's supposed to, Jack the Golden Bear is supposed to hammer the drum
tap, and he was chubs. I was sucking the light. Here we go. Fire it up, folks.
It's got to be harder than that, man. I love the Golden Bear. But
the poor lady in the background said, let's go Panthers. Come on.
Playing the tambourine there.
I'm like, oh, my God, this guy is just sucking the life right out of this building.
Yeah.
And the Panthers had a good start. They
needed the Golden Bear to rip his jersey off with no tarp and hammer that drum.
It just was a tough look. That's the wrong guy. And then, secondly, I thought the ice looked awful. The puck looked like it was bouncing around. Both teams had to play with it. But the ice, I can't imagine
That's what you're
how
gonna
hot
get,
it
man.
is there right now.
That's what you're getting in late June anywhere, in Florida, in Edmonton. I mean, I agree with that assessment of both. I love Jack Nicklaus, but that was tough. And I think he's 84, 85.
Yeah.
And that might have been
last night.
That might have been a misstep. That might have been what Bill Zito was throwing the water bottle about after the game.
Yeah, he looked frustrated for sure.
Bill Zito's the GM of the Panthers, and if you've been watching the games, he has not moved once. They pan to him 2 or 3 times a game, and he's in the exact same seat. He looks like he's not breathing.
He's mummified.
Yes, he just is staring, and then all of a sudden, that's him in warm up, the first period, the third period, and then all of a sudden he just snaps out of it and freaks. And him throwing the water bottle, it probably doesn't matter necessarily, but what it does show is that the Panthers realize what's slipping away here.
Well, they're in a series now.
Yes.
That's really what it is. Early on, it wasn't. Florida, everything was kind of swinging their way. They deserved, they earned, all of that type of stuff. But they're in a series now. That doesn't mean they can't win it.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely can win it if they get back to playing the way they played in the first, we'll call it, games 2 and 3. That's really, game 1 was Bob stole the game. But I think games 2 and 3, they were the better team. They deserved to win, and they've got to get that formula back. But Edmonton's got their attention. I don't know where the underpants camera's at, but
well, Bill Zito. That's another thing about watching that. Like if Bill lets that bottle go a little early, Kaber takes one right off the head.
Yeah,
like Brian McCabe's right in front of him there. And
just slice off the last couple of hairs on his skullet.
That would have gone viral quickly if Kaber took a water bottle off the head.
And it goes in slow-mo, and you just see the cap of the water bottle just peeling off the last strip of hair.
Yeah, that would not have been good. But Kaber's all good, and they're on their way up. And, the McDavid Conn Smythe thing.
You're not there yet.
Well, I totally understand it, and I get it, and I guess I do support it. What I'm saying is the series isn't over. 2 games ago it's Bob, it's Barkov, and then he has back-to-back 4-point games, and it's McDavid. Like we're swinging a lot here, and I guess that's all I'm saying is it could swing back the other way, but I could definitely see it happening. It does feel like it's picked up enough momentum, but if it happens in a loss. Like, would Jerry have the stones to ask him to smile for the pick? Like, if you're up there, would he be like, smile?
No, dude. But I understand what you're saying is like we're flipping, but it's almost like we're finally giving one of the greatest players of all time his flowers because we've always just been like, that's what McDavid does. This guy, what did he get, 150 points? He lost the Hart Trophy. Matthews had a great year or whatever, but this year it's like he's 100 assists, no Hart Trophy. It's going to go to McKinnon or Kucherov. I think it's just the appropriate amount of respect and attention to a guy who deserves it, man. Yeah. It's just like we always are like, oh, that's Connor McDavid. That's what he does. And I think for years we've taken it for granted what he does every night. Because it's just, oh, that's him, 7 assists in a game. Whatever the hell the guy does out there, everyone's like, well, that's what he does. That's McDavid. Mm-hmm. It's about time he gets the appropriate amount of flowers, which he is right now.
He's getting them right now. Yeah, it was unbelievable to watch him play last night. It was a great hockey game, too. Just an unbelievable, jam-packed entertainment value, everything you could ask for.
Yeah.
That's without
My buddy Dave Carlisle texted me and said, that's probably the best hockey game I've ever watched.
Yeah, it was electric.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was great. And we got another one, in a couple of nights, Game 6. So Darren Dreger will join us. Dregs has been busy today. Jacob Markstrom on his way from Calgary to New Jersey. Sheldon Keefe's a pretty happy man, I guarantee you that.
Good for Fitz. Good for Fitz. He just said enough with the nonsense. These young guys wheeling in and out. You got a goalie.
Yep.
Good for Fitz.
How many times did we say last year, Jersey's a pretty good team if they could get a save. They just didn't have saves. They haven't had saves. Now you got Markstrom and Jake Allen there. That's 2 grizzled vets. They're going to play in net, right?
Pretty good tandem there. And this one came out of nowhere. Pierre-Luc Dubois for Darcy Kuemper. PLD on his way to Washington. Kuemper on his way to L.A. Barclay Goodrow was on waivers by the Rangers, claimed by San Jose. There's a lot going on in the league right now. Darren Dreger will join us to break down what he saw today, what he makes of it, and where the league goes from here. James Duthie still to come. Jerry's percentages in about an hour. The Jays losing last night, back in action tonight. We're tracking it. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
Big news with the Jays as well, as my guy Vladdy chopped a salad.
I saw that, man. That's a really big step for Vladdy.
That was like a big part of his brand and the whole nine, and he said, I'm cutting the salad.
Probably feels lighter.
Yeah.
You know, like if you got long hair, like you just, I got a little trim today. And
yeah, high and tight. I like it. You're got it on the rails.
Yeah,
Feeling good, looking good.
But this is, he had a long salad, so you get rid of that.
Ever since I've known him, like publicly, obviously not as, friend, but I mean, when he was 16, 17, this guy's had long hair. And that is a life-changing development for Vladdy. If he takes off, it's going to be the hair, right? If this guy goes deep twice tonight and just starts absolutely tattooing baseballs all over Major League parks, we know what's up.
It's amazing.
You got to get the haircut.
It's amazing how stupid you can be as an athlete, where it's like not going so good. Like mine was, I'm going to goatee. Mm-hmm. I'm trying the goatee. Yeah. And it's like as if the goatee would have anything to do with anything.
It's just something different, though. You're right.
I know.
Everyone's superstitious. You got to say McDavid was wearing the gray suit again last night.
Right.
He had the one night off, wore the black suit. Last night, the gray suit made an appearance. That's not disappearing.
Oh, yeah. I'd go frosty tips, goatee. I would mix up anything.
Handlebar mustache. Would you do that to score?
Well, my goatee was like a Brad Pitt goatee, mustache on top and just a little Leonard Chinnard at the bottom. That's what Caber calls it, Leonard Chinnard. So it was just a small one.
Okay. Well, we got an update on that Landon Donovan hair situation as well.
Wow.
We'll tell you about it. Yeah, there was a procedure, but it was elective. He chose. Yeah, he chose to have a procedure. He paid for that. He paid for it, and man, did he pay for it. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Jerry's in an hour. Here's Darren Dreger, a TSN Hockey Insider. Why are we having all these moves today, Dregs? What happened today? Is it July 1st and we missed it?
Yeah, I mean, off day, obviously, between Game 5 and Game 6. And, teams are trying to get their business done because we passed Game 7 and then into Vegas for the draft. But maybe clubs are getting nervous, too, right? Like, I look at the Calgary Flames and the Markstrom trade to the New Jersey Devils. I mean, that thing has been on and again and off again, since pre-trade deadline. But Tom Fitzgerald, the GM of the Devils, was kicking tires, and more than kicking tires, having legit trade conversations with some other goalies, like Linus Ullmark with the Boston Bruins. So pretty sure that Calgary got wind of that. And that process between Calgary and New Jersey was always amicable. But here's something that kind of surfaced today in my post-trade kind of digging around. So when the deal with New Jersey was basically set pre-trade deadline, well, that was the team, obviously, the Markstrom wanted to go to. Basically one team. I identified New Jersey, let's get this deal done. They weren't able to get the deal done. So to help facilitate Calgary, Markstrom and his agent, Pat Morris, went to Craig Conroy and said, okay, he still has his no move, no trade protection, so he's got to sign off when you get a deal, but we're willing to expand our field here a little bit. And I know that Calgary was in trade discussions with other clubs. How many of them were serious? Like Brad Treliving, as we know, kicks tires on everything. I was told that Markstrom was intrigued by Toronto. Ottawa would have loved to land Jacob Markstrom. Felt like they had the pieces to land Jacob Markstrom. But again, how hard was the push? How serious was the negotiation? And in the end, was Markstrom willing to waive to go to Ottawa? And there would have been other teams that expressed interest, but it came down to, Calgary just making the best deal, the best fit, and they got that deal done.
I can't believe, Darren, that other teams wouldn't, like, you know how they just say, oh, we don't want to give up that prospect. Like, when you're talking about an organizational changer, like a goalie that can go in there and stop pucks, where they're like, oh, if you get to that prospect, we can't make the deal. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to be stupid and push all the chips in, but I'm making that happen for anyone that needs a save because it's that important. You have zero chance to win without it.
Yeah. And Dregs, the other thing too is if the was it expanded, like to me one of these teams would just say name your price, like that's the other thing too. If that's
right.
if to me Jersey needed a goaltender, so if I'm Tommy Fitz, you say to Craig Conroy, name your price, and we got to do it. They didn't get any saves last year. They traded for Jake Allen at the deadline. So, I mean, it's interesting.
It looks like they got a great deal. Like, Calgary retained some money. Ball's a young defenseman who played 82 games. He's now established. But I don't know if he's got stardom in his future and a future first-rounder that's top 10 protected. Like, I don't think Jersey paid that much, Dregs.
No, I think it's a pretty good deal for both. I really do. And it seemed pretty obvious to Calgary, even though Calgary wanted the information out there leading up to this deal that they didn't feel like they had to trade him. Well, how do you go back into the season with Jacob Markstrom in net? He would have been miserable. And who knows, maybe it turns ugly. Maybe he turns up the heat in the offseason and says, well, whatever, I'm not coming to camp. I'm not saying that was the plan, but Calgary needed to make a deal. And they made a good deal. They did. And when you look at the future, they're going to add some other pieces here. They've got to bolster their defense. I don't think that they're in the market for any big name guys per se. Maybe they dabble in free agency, but they've now got 6 first-round draft picks for the next 3 drafts, and they feel pretty good about the 2025 draft. So this is just part of their renovation on the fly.
Well, how does this affect the markets for Ullmark, for Saros, if he becomes available? Like, what was established here in terms of goaltending in the market with this Markstrom deal going down?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. And, Ullmark for me is the next man up, right? And I honestly believe that the concern of New Jersey switching gears and primarily focus on Linus Ullmark maybe kind of got that going, because as I told Noodles last night, so I had an exchange with a really good source in New Jersey at 2:31 p.m. yesterday. Said, no, nothing going on with the goalie in Calgary. All right, no problem. What happened was Calgary kind of re-engaged late afternoon, and they closed the deal more or less late last night. Now, Markstrom, I think, is in Sweden. He's in Europe, so he couldn't sign off until this morning. But I think Calgary got spooked a little bit and knew that Fitzy was dealing with other teams, and I believe that Ullmark was one of those. So it just feels like L.A. could be still a landing spot. I know they made the trade, sending Pierre-Luc Dubois to Washington for Darcy Kuemper. But is that enough? Is that a quality enough goaltender for Rob Blake and the LA Kings to keep their powder dry? Whereas Ullmark one more time said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing the LA thing. There's still some balls in the air. I think Saros stays in Nashville. I think they get that extension done.
Darren, who's doing the pro scouting for Washington? Did nobody take a peek at what they just acquired last year? They've been watching that. I don't know how you look at that and the money and the deal and just be like, yeah, we'll take it on. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Pierre-Luc Dubois traded from L.A. to Washington.
1 for 1.
Yes.
1 for 1.
Darcy Kuemper.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting one, and it comes before Pierre-Luc Dubois' no trade, no move kicks in July 1st. A little bit of background for you fellas. I know, and this is just historical, that when Kevin Shoveldayoff was trying to drum up a market for Pierre-Luc Dubois, he didn't have any interest in the Washington Capitals, he being PLD. So why did that interest all of a sudden change? I mean, there's a pretty big difference between living in L.A. and living in Washington. And the L.A. Kings aren't that bad of a team. And, look, we know what the Washington Capitals are. So I guess he didn't like it, the fit in L.A. I was emphatically told he did not encourage the trade. He didn't ask for the trade out of L.A. But he's excited about a fresh new start, another new start. But it's a curious
Another
one.
new start.
Another new start.
That doesn't even sound right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like he's 31. Like, this guy is now pretty well traveled, right? You go Columbus, where we go? Columbus, Winnipeg, L.A., now Washington, and is he 25 years old yet? Like, I think
he's 26, I believe, and the money, $8.5 million for the next 7 years. Washington, that's you're taking him on. The guy's immensely talented. He's an enigma.
Right.
When he plays well, obviously you see what you're looking for and what you're hoping to get if you're Spencer Carberry and the Caps. But problem is the guy's remarkably inconsistent. And, Kuemper was a swing and a miss too, right?
Yeah.
Like he won his cup. He played pretty well the first year. This year, Charlie Lindgren was starting all the games for the Caps, so they wanted to move off him anyway. But I don't know. I will say this. Shrewd by L.A. Shrewd, because we always hear this, Dregs, like teams are and this is from our perspective, right? I've never heard a team necessarily say this on the record, but it might look bad on us if we acquire guys and trade them, even though we just signed them. L.A. said, screw that. We don't care what Pierre-Luc Dubois or anyone else thinks. This didn't work. We're out of here. We're trading you before your no move kicks in. That's ruthless, but I appreciate it.
So do I.
And LA could be clearing the deck here for who knows what. We're seeing some bigger names get moved, some bigger contracts get moved. I'm not turning the wheel of speculation here because there are no names that need to be attached. But have a look at the Stanley Cup Final. There's one or two big names with some levels of uncertainty as to whether or not they're going to stay moving forward. There's enough going on around the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, just go down the list. So cap space is it's still a currency. It's big time, especially when you're a team like the LA Kings that is also trying to rework on the go here.
That's where I was going to go, Dregs, is now you're seeing some chips fall here. Does that, maybe provide a little bit more urgency for some of these teams where you just mentioned, Craig Conroy decides, you know what, we're gonna move on the goaltender and move him out because you're hearing chatter. Like now all of a sudden, if Ottawa's in the market for a goalie, LA was in the market for a goalie, and that, does that start to just move the needle a little bit? Because I think the next shoe to drop with the Hronek contract, you're going to see a lot of coveted defensemen that either go off the market, or there's going to be a lot of movement here, either at the draft or on free agency. Am I wrong with that assessment?
No, you're right. And one thing that a lot of managers have learned is you can't rely on free agency, right? But one thing I will share with you, and this is just obvious, and I mean, it's basic tampering, but we know that conversations are being had with the crop of pending unrestricted free agents across the board. I had one general manager describe what was going on at the Combine recently in Buffalo as close to being a job fair between the agents.
I love it. Maybe that's why they just put it together for them, Darren, so they can go have their job fair.
So you've got that side of things, but, just to zero in on a bit of information, I look at Chris Tanev again. Well, Ottawa would love to get their hands on Chris Tanev as a free agent. Toronto went down that path with Tanev around the trade deadline. Just weren't able to get it done, right? So he goes to Dallas, and there's no guarantee that Dallas is going to be able to re-sign him, but they're working hard to extend Chris Tanev. And Chris Tanev loved his short time in Dallas, sees himself as a fit there, and he wants to stay there. So all of a sudden, if you're a club in the market for a defenseman, and he's a guy that ticks a lot of boxes, but there's a 30% chance you're going to be able to take a swing at him, do you wait? If there's another opportunity, it's going to be a busy time here over the next couple of weeks.
Yep, I like it. I like where this is going. And, even the Barclay Goodrow scenario seemed strange to me. New York puts him on waivers, and San Jose claims him. When do you see a scenario? I can't recall, a claim on a guy with he's got term left, and I know San Jose's not that good, and he started his career there.
They just needed a guy to just be a veteran and kind of maybe finish off his career there and just.
But does he want it? That's the other thing. No. I know there's nothing you can do. You're on waivers either for purpose of buyout, but team grabs you. He has familiarity too. He's been there before, but I don't know if he wants to. That's career ending.
They're terrible.
You're going to a situation where you're going from the Rangers, a first-place team, to a last-place team, legitimately.
Yeah.
That's tough for him.
Yeah, I mean, there would be a relationship or history with Mike Greer when he was with the Rangers, so Goodrow would know Mike. There must have been maybe a sales job, and that can happen too, right? Before you make the claim. Because I know that when the Rangers released the information that they did yesterday, Yeah, I mean, it was made pretty clear to us that Goodrow's first choice was not to go back to San Jose. So if you're Greer, you got to polish that opportunity up as best you can, and maybe remind him of Nick Foligno's situation, what the Chicago Blackhawks have done in kind of insulating Connor Bedard. You know, is the same thing going to apply with Macklin Celebrini in San Jose. The one thing I would say is I can understand why San Jose would do it to make sure that they've got proper insulation, and Barclay Goodrow is one of the good character dudes, right? Like, so he's going to help that room, but I don't know how much he's going to be able to help that group get through the tough times, and they've got tough times ahead.
Yeah, they sure do. All right, Dregs, safe travels. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Okay, boys. Enjoy the games.
Darren Dreger, a TSN Hockey Insider. So, yeah, a lot going on in the NHL, a lot going on in the NBA. Monty Williams got fired in Detroit.
Dude, I don't ever tweet about basketball. I saw that, and I just wrote, you can't be serious.
I know.
Yeah.
Monty Williams signed a massive contract, the richest coach contract in NBA history, wasn't it?
That's correct.
And they fired him. That team is trash.
Yep. A year later, this guy, Monty Williams, got fired in May of 2023 by the Suns, securing a $20 million buyout. Then he signed a 6-year, $78.5 million deal with Detroit like a month later, largest coaching contract in NBA history. A year later, he's fired. This guy's going to make like $100 million to not coach.
That's crazy.
Unreal setup.
Like, doesn't ownership go to the GM and say, that's your coach? Like, we haven't won squad, and we're blowing cash like crazy. That's the coach.
What could he have done differently there?
The only thing I could think of is Cade Cunningham went to somebody and said, I literally can't stand this guy, which is insane. But that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, they were historically horrendous until they played the Raptors, right? They beat them a couple times. But what did they lose? 30-something games in a row? And then the Raptors, of course, lost to them. But I guess maybe that's what it is. Like, you just represent something that was such a disaster. But that roster, that's the San Jose Sharks of the NBA. Like, the Pistons have been a debacle for years. And I don't think it's going to change, whoever the coach is. Also reports Siakam's going to sign that max deal in Indiana. So Pascal's going to make like $190 million, and he fit in pretty well there. They went to a conference final. Good for him. You know, you got your ring here. He was a great Raptor. Now he'll be a Pacer, and he's making a lot of cash, and it's all good for Pascal Siakam.
What about the cake that Tatum's going to throw in his jeans?
Oh.
Yeah. It's just going to get bigger and bigger, man. The reports on what this next TV deal is going to look like, and, you know, it's collectively bargained. The players get 50% or whatever, 48%. Like, max players are going to make $65 million a year.
When we have a little down segment or whatever, I want to get into this because I was talking to
segment.
Well, you know what I mean, like more time.
Way to pump this up, Noodles.
No, but I want to get into it because the NBA has took off with salaries.
Mm-hmm.
The NHL, there were guys making $10 million a year in the year 2000.
Right.
And the top is what, 12 and a half, 13 now, 25 years later?
Yep.
Like it's the NBA, guys are making 8, now they're making 40 or
crazy.
50. Like it's
They're
crazy.
making more than 50, and it's soon to be, like, they're saying there will be a time in our lifetime guys will make $100 million like a year to play in the NBA.
Unbelievable.
Like, now that seems like far-fetched, but if you have a max contract that can be a certain amount, all NBA, wins MVP, goes to the All-Star, like checks all the boxes, and can get a certain amount of the cap, and the cap's through the roof. 75, 80 million a year, like, to play ball. It's crazy. All right, James Duthie coming up. Jerry's percentages coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, James Duthie coming up from Atlanta. Copa America starting later this week. Canada, Argentina Friday night. Jerry's percentages as well. And I've been watching the Euros, and it's a totally different experience for me now ever since that English fan who fell asleep in the stadium.
You love
You're
that
watching
guy,
for
man.
it? You're watching
no,
for
you
the
love
guy.
that guy.
I love that guy, and I'm watching the stands being like, who's the next victim? Like, who's the next guy? I was watching the Croatia-Albania match today, which was brilliant, a brilliant match.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get that vernacular going, right? Every couple of years at the Euros or the World Cup, you get these British play-by-play guys, and I try to mix in as much of their sayings as I possibly can. But I'm just watching the stands like Germany was playing today. Obviously, the host country, they won. I'm like, who's in there that's just so over the top and overserved that they're just going to fall asleep in there? Like, who's going to be the next guy? Because I want to see it. I want to see the next TikTok video go viral of someone falling asleep in a soccer stadium in Germany. I need it.
Well, it's coming. It depends on who wins, though, or loses. You got a fan that's overserved and they've lost, you know they're in one, right? Like, that'll be tough.
That's what's crazy, Noodles. England won. Like, that was a celebratory night.
A celebratory pass out.
Yeah, celebratory
We got to
pass
get
out.
that guy on, man. Can we find that guy?
Get him on.
Yeah.
Doogie, find that guy.
Find that guy, Doogie. Please. We need to find the English fan. And will there be any Canadian fans? You know, is that going to happen? Possibly. Canada, Argentina, down in Atlanta. There'll be a lot of Canadians going down there for sure for the match tomorrow night. So Duffy coming up to tee that up. His take on McDavid, what he witnessed last night, what he thinks could happen, who's going to win the Conn Smythe based on wins, losses, everything else. And Jerry's percentages at 5:30. Jay's in action tonight as well. We'll look ahead to that. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.